arrived.
They arrived from where?
We arrived from school actually.
Oh, from school. But you are students of which schools?
Global Indian International School.
Global Indian International.
Yeah, very much.
Very good.
Please sit down, guys. Introduce yourself.
Saksham Kaushik. Saksham Kaushik.
Sakshan Caution.
Kaushik Das.
Sheen Mantu.
Rasika Kali. Rasika Kali.
Pooja Swaru.
Pujaswaru. Okay. What class, what level?
Great.
We are all grade 10.
We are aware of it, but as an insider with so many other decisions, how does it feel to be part of the UN decision making on a global scale?
Well, okay. I mean, UN, of course, is something like you've heard of Alfred Lord Tennyson, of course. Alfred Lord Tennyson. He once of that kind of thinking. Tennyson was British, and they believed in parliaments and how will of people would be reflected in decision making. So eventually, when the United Nations was founded, it was a successor of the League of Nations, and it was seen as a parliament of men. Now, the League of Nations was headquartered in Geneva, and that was established after the First Great War, which ended in 1919. And between 1919 and 1939, the League of Nations was in existence, but failed to, not the result. After the Second World War, they decided to establish something more effectively, and the United Nations was set up. First in San Francisco, and then it moved to New York. First in London, actually, one session, Frisco, and then New York. Now, the United Nations has 5 organs. The Security Council, which has 15 members, which is the most powerful organ. On the Security Council, there are 5 permanent members who are called P5. UK representing different geographical groups, 15. As you know, India, Germany, Brazil, South Africa also want to be permanent members. So there are P5, and decisions of the Security Council are binding. And if the Security Council decides that a decision is taken under what they call Chapter 7, which means it can be implemented with military force. You see, usually Western military force. Anyway, so Security Council is binding, mandatory implementation. The other major organ, which is more like the parliament, is the General Assembly, where every country is a member. It has 193. Every country which wants to be a member is a member. 193 countries. So the General Assembly decisions are normative values expressed through a resolution. It is not binding, it is not mandatory. It says, okay, Israel must leave the West Bank. Resolution. Year after year there is a resolution. But these are resolutions on Palestine which are non-binding, unlike the Security Council resolution. Then you have the Economic and Social Council, ECOSOC, which elects 18 members. ECOSOC takes decisions on social and economic issues. Then there used to be a committee called Decolonization Committee, but that was done away with. And you have the Human Rights Council in Geneva. That's located in Geneva. It used to be a commission before, which meant it had a lower powers. Now it's a council and it's a full-fledged member of the United Nations. Now, it is true that in the United Nations, not all decisions can be implemented. But when a decision is taken, it is generally felt that that reflects the urges, the aspirations of the global community. That is why it is interesting to be a part of that decision. It's not so interesting if you're the object of the resolution. If you are like, say, for example, Syria or Israel, it's not so interesting to the public opinion. Another important thing about the United Nations is that this is one place where every country, sovereign equality is a major principle of the United Nations, which means Tonga is equal to the United States. However, in reality, unreal it may be, because Tonga is never equal to the United States, or Tuvalu. Tonga, I don't know if it's Tuvalu, but it's not true, but still it's considered. So sovereign law of equality is not, but long before your time, during the Cold War, it was used very often initially by the Russians and then by the Americans when the third world countries became a majority. So when the developing countries became a majority and passed resolutions with which America was uncomfortable, America vetoed the resolutions. It is not a, I mean, you as Singapore may think that, well, it's unfair. I mean, it's patently unfair because where equality is so much stressed. But the fact remains that if China, Russia, or the United States is against something, it would be very difficult to implement it in the real world as it is. You see, you may say that what about France and UK? I mean, England is becoming smaller and smaller, and if Scotland leaves next year, England will be smaller still. So what about France and the UK? But the problem is that that's a historical legacy. We would like to change it, but we can't for obvious reasons, because even if you want to change it, that decision to change it will be vetoed by them, obviously. Right. So technically you can't get anything done with regard to United Nations because it will veto. Now there is another proposal of membership without veto powers, permanent membership without. This is what India is seeking to do. But the problem with India is, or problem with Brazil, or problem with Germany, or the problem with South Africa, is that these countries are opposed by their immediate neighbors. You see, like for example, India's aspirations, Pakistan would die in the ditch before allowing India to be a member of the Security Council. Germany is vehemently opposed by Italy, Japan by China, South Africa by the neighboring African countries, Brazil by Argentina. So initially these countries said that, okay, we represent our neighborhood, but it's the neighborhood actually is doing down the representation. Yes, veto is patently unfair, but I don't see the system being changed anytime soon. Yeah, any question?
Sir, at one point of time you were the foreign minister of Bangladesh. So do you foresee any changes or developments down the road, maybe in 5 years or so, between India and Bangladesh, or with any other neighboring countries in general?
Yeah, I like to believe that, and if you hear me tomorrow, I'll try to say it if I get an opportunity, and I might get an opportunity in the panel. I was thinking of a concept of a South Asian home, some kind of a informal architecture that brings India, Pakistan and Bangladesh together. The old British India, the old single unit. India, Pakistan, Bangladesh was one unit at one point in time. We have SADC, but the problem with SADC is when we developed SADC, and in fact, we were responsible, Bangladesh, and I as a young diplomat worked on drafting the SADC procedures. We made 2 or 3, not mistakes, but 2 or 3 contents of the working methods went against any kind of decision making in SADC. One was there are too many bureaucratic levels of decision making. In all international organizations that you have in the neighborhood, or in Europe, or in Africa, you have senior officials, ministers. Senior officials make proposals, ministers take decisions. In SADC, you have 4 levels of decision making. One, joint secretaries, which is a lesser form of animal life in bureaucracy, you say. Then you have foreign secretaries, who are called secretaries of SADC, then ministers, and then presidents or heads. 4 levels. So by the time anything reaches up to the level of the minister's hand is tied, because the joint secretaries and the secretaries have already taken some decisions. Thirdly, all decisions have to be by consensus. That is a problem because we never have consensus between the 7 countries. And fourthly, you avoided any contentious issues. So if the contentious issues are not going to be discussed, water or Kashmir or whatever, what's the point? So SADC failed. So my idea was that let's not be so formal. Can we not have an informal grouping at the level of heads of government only? Forget the bureaucrats. Heads of government come together, have no formal agenda, discuss all issues, possible issues, and then give directions to the bureaucracy to follow up. In other words, it's top-down rather than bottom-up. And the issues we can have, you see, South Asia is known for its civil society, its intellectual capabilities. Can we not have a group of eminent persons deciding how to categorize issues? The difficult issues, red box, Kashmir, for instance. The less difficult issues, an orange box, water, etc. The least difficult issues like economic trade, etc., in green box. And these boxes are not watertight compartments, but you address the lower hanging fruit first. You know, the fruit that hangs low, you take that, and then gradually graduate to more difficult decision making. Can that procedure be evolved? So this I call trilateralism, or I will call trilateralism tomorrow. India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, an informal grouping of the 3. Here, of course, India will have to intellectually accept that they are not the big brother, but the elder brother. They have a disproportionate responsibility because of their size, etc., and exercise that responsibility in a way that the others are not unhappy. And secondly, I believe that this could allow these 3 countries to fly in a flying geese formation. A flying geese formation is one leads, and by the strength derived from the flapping of the wing of the leader, the others draw strength. So Bangladesh, Pakistan follows with India in the lead. If something like that could be evolved, I foresee that as the beginning of an Asian home, laying the foundation of this new concept of an Asian home. Yes, some years down the line, I see the problems sort of getting less and less intense. It's already happening between India and Pakistan. It's happened between India and Bangladesh largely. There are some differences, but those differences notwithstanding, if we have a paradigm like that, if we have a less than an architecture, a paradigm, then it's possible.
Despite of all the subcontinent countries like Bangladesh, India, Pakistan being culturally more or less similar, what's the trouble for us? You know, why can't we make such an Asian home? What's the difficulty?
South Asian home. Yeah. The difficulty is that uh, the political organization of the day reflects the political realities. In 1947, the reality was such that Jinnah thought that Hindus and Muslims could not live together, and the Muslims needed a separate home in order to develop their own faculties and capabilities. Fair enough. I mean, that was thinking, and he was able to lead it. Not that he was a practicing Muslim or anything, but his concept was almost Wilsonian, that the Muslims, by, as he said, by name and nomenclature, art and architecture, by their beliefs and etc., formed a separate nation. If they were a separate nation, each country to a nation. Then Bangladesh evolved. Neither Muslim nor, I mean, they were Bengalis and Muslims, so the Bangladeshi has two identity. Anyway, however, so the political arrangement is the result of the politics of the day. It does not prevent something like this from happening now. If the environment changes, it is quite possible the arrangement will change. But Indians will say that, okay, India has come to stay. Pakistan will say Pakistan has come to stay. Bangladesh has come to, will say Bangladesh has come to stay. But remember what history teaches us, or what the Greeks have taught us in history, Heraclitus, that you never step into the same river twice. Everything is in flux. Everything is moving. So everything will change.
So what do you think of the major and minor factors that would actually make India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh really come together as South Asian?
Well, I mean, my concept is the answer I've given her, that the only way to do it is to have a very informal organization. Any formal move will evoke resistance. So it has to be very informal, it has to be casual. You see, my point is diaspora, like, okay, I mean, I'd assume that most of you are NRIs, Indians, rather than Singaporeans. In which case, look, abroad we are like one family. I mean, this is what the convention is showing you. I have greater instance, which is more than these conventions. Like, I've been involved with United Peacekeeping in Africa. Not between civilians like us, it is between our militaries, and they are working together. You see, I mean, this is not Professor so-and-so and Dr. so-and-so working together. It's General so-and-so and General so-and-so, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, working together in the Congo, working together in Côte d'Ivoire, working together in Sudan. See, so if they can cooperate abroad, why is it that it cannot be reflected at home? Diaspora can, to my mind, can give this tremendous pressure to the political leaderships at home to come together. When you go to London, you don't see the difference between the Pakistani and the Bangladeshi in the way. When you go to East London, or even Indian, East London, when you go to Little India here, you see no difference between Bangladeshi and Indian. See, so why isn't it reflected, East London or Little India reflected home? It's possible. Good or bad, I don't know. I mean, some might say, okay, it's good to be separate countries like Europe and then come together in a larger framework. But the fact is that it should be a relationship of amity rather than animosity. And there's absolutely no reason if we are best friends in ISAS, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, why can't we? I used to be the foreign minister of one of the three countries. My best friend, if we can have that, was the foreign finance minister of Pakistan, Mr. Javed Birki. You see, we belong to the same service, we believe in the same things, we write the same papers, we're going to work together in Afghanistan. So why can't we do together? Well, thank you very much. You want to take them away?
No, sir, we want to take them, but want to photograph them.
You want to photograph with me?
Yes.
Whatever would you want that for? Yeah. Oh. You're only here for the beer.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Chowdhury, that's the first time the students have had an opportunity to speak to a dignitary from
Thank you.
from Bangladesh.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.